had an uncle, personal, that came out,
What was that? Your dad's mother's name was Percival?
yeah, her maiden name was Personal. And her brother homesteaded down where, well, Hecox has the place now. But he homesteaded. And my grandmother homesteaded the place where I live. And that cabin was built there in about 1980. They came
About
here
1980.
1880. They came here in 1879.
From where?
Well, my grandmother was originally from New York. She was married in Peoria, Illinois. My dad was born in Kansas. Now, I don't know why. But his dad died on Christmas Day before he was born in January.
Grandpa's birthday is when? January
23rd.
And that's Reed, right?
Uh-huh.
And what was in your...
Arthur Franklin Reed. And he had a half-brother that lived in Peoria, Illinois, Nathan Reed. And I tried to trace that, and I haven't found anything on that either.
And Grandma's maiden name is Percival?
Yes. And she...
That was your grandmother, not our grandmother, right?
Yeah,
Great
my
grandmother.
grandmother.
Pardon?
My dad's
Her grandmother.
mother. My dad's mother. And they came by train to Boise. And then the wagon trains from Boise.
What year was that, you know?
1879.
Oh, okay.
And he had, I'm not sure, but I think this Josephine was a half-sister. I'm not sure, but I think so. And there was a Walter Lutton, who was either a cousin or a nephew of my dad.
Well.
And the last I knew of them, they did move to Boise, Idaho. Then this Walter and his wife were living in Beaverton, Oregon at one time. The folks in Arthur and Elsie visited them, and they came to Bozeman one time later. They had 3 children. It was Josephine, Leslie, and Grace. And their name was Lutton. But this, my dad's, I don't know what the other Percival brother's name was, but his widow was Addie. And she had 3 daughters. They were Winifred, this Lillian, and another one. I can't think of the other one's name right now. But this Lillian Percival was a nurse, and she worked for the Vanderbilt. She went overseas during World War I. And in Amy Vanderbilt's book, she mentions this Miss Percival.
And who is that related to?
She was my dad's cousin.
Your dad's cousin. Okay.
Well, in this movie the other night, Gloria, there was the nurse. Well, it's probably like my
Oh, Jessica, come over here to Grandma. Come over
Keep
here
talking,
to
Grandma.
Grandma.
No, Jessica, leave that.
Come and see Grandma.
No.
Get her over here anyway.
No, go sit by Grandma. Okay.
Come up and
No.
see Grandma.
Oh, no, was there any other relatives of Grandpa Reed that you know of then, in this area?
Well, no. Well, this, I think his name was George, first of all. It was, Ralph's great-grandmother. See, he was my dad's uncle. And he had 2 children. There was Myrtle Lewis Jones. She married George Jones.
And
This,
that's where
their daughter married George Jones. And they had 2 children. There was Myrtle, who married Charlie Lewis. And Ralph Jones married Monty Montana Walker. And they had Lester, Adina, and she was scalded and died when she was about 2.5. Then Ralph and Louise and Martin.
And they're all Jones.
Yes. Then Ralph then had Donnie, who died when he
Sonny Earl, he was 8, wasn't
he's about 2.5. And then Linda, Anita, and Connie. And I've got it all on paper, the rest of the generation. And the Lewis, little Lewis, married Charlie Lewis. And they had Ida, who married Frank Gastineau. They were separated later. She had 2 daughters. I don't know their names. And Mary Lewis married Bob Hoadley. She had no children, I believe. And then Lily Lewis was a dwarf, and she never married. And then they had a son, Glenn. And then they had another son, I think. But I don't know, I don't have the records on that part of the family. And then this Maggie Personal married Apperson, what's his name? Henry Apperson. And they had several children. Now, there was Clara, who married Enoch Johnson. Mabel.
The Johnsons were related.
And Mary married, wait a minute, Clara. And Mabel married a Colson. They lived out in Spokane. And she died here a few years ago, and he remarried, and I can't think what his first name was. And Hazel Monroe. Hazel married, what was Monroe was his name?
Bill?
No, not Dale.
What was the girl's name? Maxine?
No, Georgia was his daughter,
Oh.
but I can't think what her dad's name was right now. And then there were some younger ones, but I just don't have, I should get that information from Clara.
Well, Georgia Monroe's the one that Junior went to school.
Yes, I said, she was the same relation to him that Ralph and Ina were. Same relationship, exactly.
Okay, in Grandma's side now, there was just 3 sisters, right? 4 sisters.
4 sisters.
And that's where the McFerrins come in.
What were all their names then when they were married? Or what happened?
Well, see,
Aunt Em never married.
there's some records now. I've got a lot of this information from this cousin of my mom's that lives in Lamar, Missouri. I wanted to get there this trip I was talking about. I didn't get there. But she's got a lot. There was a large family of the Conrads. There was John Jacobs and all. In one family there were 18, and she only had records of 12.
Who are the
Her name.
Conrads? That's who Grandma
That's my mother.
Well, that's her maiden name was Conrad.
Yeah.
Yeah, Grandma.
And her,
So you don't know who all her brothers or sisters were?
Oh, Grandma.
yeah, I've got it all at home. I haven't got it all down.
Aunt Em and Aunt Jess and
But,
what was the other sister?
Ada.
Ada.
But she had 3 brothers, but they all died when they were young, infants.
I never knew that.
And anyway, their father died before Aunt Jess was born. And,
Well, Jess was the youngest?
yes.
They remarried then? They
When was-
you remarried?
Okay, can we get back into some births here? When was Grandma Reed born and when was Grandpa Reed born?
1867, I believe Dad was.
January
He
1st?
died in 60, and he was 93, so you can figure if I'm right.
You died in 60 or yeah, 57.
And Mom was 7, and she was 86 when she died in 60.
In
So,
1960.
74, wasn't it?
And she was born in Missouri?
Yes.
Well, was Ada her oldest sister?
Ada was the oldest.
Yeah, what did Aunt Jess, Aunt Ann, and Aunt Ada all do?
Well, Aunt Aid was married first. She married George McFerrin. And my mom had an uncle, Henry Conrad, who married George McFerrin's sister.
And how many children did they have?
Well, let me see. They had Harley and John, Milton and David, and Edna, or Dee. But they had 2 or 3 others that died when they were infants.
No, I never remembered her. Did she die before I was born? Or?
Yes. Jean was just a baby when she died.
She died pretty young then?
No, she was married and had these kids, but she died in Miles City. She had pneumonia. And then Aunt Em never married, but she was a nurse for years. She took care of me when I was born, and then she said I was the first one that she ever bathed the first time. She took care of me when Bud was born. And then my mom came out here to visit her sisters. Aunt Em and Aunt Aid had come out here before my mom. And she had a dressmaking millinery shop in Missouri. After their father died,
Who was this that had that?
my mom.
Oh.
And she worked and put Aunt Jess through school. When Aunt Jess used to criticize Mom's talk, I wanted to tell her, well, if my mom hadn't educated her, she probably wouldn't have.
Well, her name was Edna Frances.
Yeah.
Edna Frances Conrad, and then there was...
And then Aunt Jess was Jessie J.
Jessie J.
Mhm.
And then, was
Grandma.
Aunt Em or Aunt Jess older?
Well, Aunt Aid was oldest, and Ann was my mom, and then Aunt Jess.
Now Aunt Ann married, right?
No.
Aunt Em never...
Oh, Aunt Jess married.
Yeah.
She married Jean Beck. And they were
Right.
married almost 30 years, and
They had
he
no...
took up with his younger gal. Yes. Margaret, she was criticizing some gal for breaking up a home, and Margaret Thomas says, well, what did you do? I guess that shut her up. But I've got a lot of, they was, these Conrads. My mom's uncles had a hardware store in Liberal, Missouri, and they helped my mom. Got her sewing equipment, and she used to order a lot of stuff out of Kansas City. She went there shopping occasionally for her shop. I still have the mirror that she had in her dressmaking shop.
And this was back in Missouri that she had the shop.
Yeah,
This
Liberal.
is before she met Grandpa?
Yeah, oh yeah, Liberal, Missouri. And I still have the green silk dress that she made before she came to Montana. And her trousseau nightgowns and pillowcases with ruffles on.
Grandma did everything.
She had her own dressmaking shop?
Oh, you bet.
Isn't that unusual for a woman in that time to have her own shop?
Oh, no. Sewing and teaching was about the only thing women did in those days. They didn't have other professions much. A few nurses and teachers and seamstresses. And she made her wedding dress. It was real fancy. We buried her in her wedding dress.
I didn't know that.
And you just forgot.
Okay.
So when they first come out here, where did they move? Did they move to where
Well,
the cabin is now?
Well, my grandmother, of course, they built that cabin. That was the homestead cabin. But the house where my mom and dad were married, where my Aunt Abe was living at the time, is right down on North Rouse. The old house is still there.
Were they living there, or they were just married there?
Well, her sister was living there.
Which one?
My mom's sister, Aunt Abe. Ada.
Where's that? On the corner, or?
No, well, it's on the corner of Rouse and Griffin Drive.
Okay.
And the McFerrins, they had
What did Grandpa do?
farms,
That's all he do is farm?
you know, milk a few cows. He used to drag the county road, drove those 3 horses and drug the old dirt roads after the rain, get full of ruts, they'd drag it to smooth it down. He used to do that all the time. And then he was on the school board for years, and the election board, and that sort of thing.
So when they moved to Bozeman and homesteaded there, it was pretty small then, Bozeman?
Yes. And then my grandmother lived in a little house there on East Babcock.
Your grandma?
Yeah, she had a little house in town after my folks lived
Well,
out in the ranch.
who's your grandma?
Vesta Percival Reed.
And that was Grandpa Reed's mother?
Right.
Oh, I was talking to Mom the other day, and she didn't think Grandpa Reed had any family out here.
I didn't know that he did.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
He was only 12 years old when he came out here. And
Well,
then,
how did him and Grandma meet then? She was back in Missouri and he was in Montana.
well, she came out here to visit her sister. In fact, he went with Aunt Jess before he met my mom.
Oh.
And then, now Ralph's, her brother, I don't, of course he was dead before I ever remember, but my dad's uncle, this Percival, I think it was George Percival. Anyway, his widow lived next door to my grandmother there on East Babcock. And they were right close to the old Huff's blacksmith shop, and we kids used to go up there and stand the hour and watch them shoe horses and sharpen plowshares. And then we were just about a block from the old city hall and the fire station, and we used to go up there and watch them. The fire horses in those days, they had horses on the fire station.
Well, there's, Ada was the only other one that had children other
Yeah.
than Grandma Reed.
Yeah,
And Jeff didn't have any, right?
no.
And then,
Harley and John were both wounded in World War I. And Harley came back and with the first bunch of GIs that got college training, and
And who's Harley?
he's Ed Abe's oldest boy,
Oh, okay.
and he graduated from college up here. But he and his brothers, they'd taken up homesteads down the eastern part of the state before they went out to the war. So they got to...
Jessica, no.
Come see Grandma.
Jessica, no.
Come see Grandma. Come here and see Grandma. Oh, you love monkey. And then John, he died over at Fort Harrison. He had some surgery and seemed to be
And
getting
their last name
along
was what again?
fine.
Their last name was what again?
McFerrin.
McFerrin. And those are
Did they have any
Ida's
children?
kids. Those are Ida's or Ada's kids, right?
They didn't.
Yeah, okay.
John didn't have any children. Dave didn't have any children, did he? Barley.
Milton then married, he was working for the railroad, and he was out in Spokane. No, wait a minute. He met this gal down in the eastern part of the state. She was, clerk, or some worked in some office there in, Broadus, or down there somewhere. Anyway, Milton married Elsie McDuffie. And she was from Spokane. But anyway, then they spent quite a bit of time in Spokane. Then her sister came out visiting, and she and Harley got married. But Milton had two boys. It was Donald and Eugene.
Well, Donnie lives over here, someplace over at Crawford, doesn't he?
He was at Crossett one time. I think he was at Clarkston one time, and I don't know where he is now.
I'd like to.
Anyway, and Jean lives in
This is
Billings.
McFarland, right?
McFerrin.
McFerrin.
McFarland.
And they're both married and have children, but I don't have a list of them. And Jean had four. He married she's related to Elsie. Francis.
Well, how many brothers and sisters did you have?
We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
But anyway, Jean and Francis, I can't think of her name right now, but anyway, they had four girls. Joan and Susan. Wait a minute, Joan. Susan. What's the younger one's name? Anyway, one of them was just married just this last year.
They live in Billings.
They live in Billings. They had four girls. And Don has a couple children, but I can't remember. Well, all right, back to me. I have two brothers. Arthur,
When were you born?
he married Elsie Phipps, and they had three children. There's Leonard, Lucille, and Franklin. And Leonard married Nettie Ruth Ealing.
Phoenix?
Ealings.
Ealings?
Yeah. And
She's from the Holland Settlement.
Lucille married Ted Welch. And Franklin married Johnny something or other. And then, what was the one's name that was killed?
Who's Franklin? I don't know.
Arthur's third.
Franklin's the one that has his legs amputated, that's in a wheelchair.
Oh, he's the one that's in Boise or something.
Yeah.
Eagle.
I don't know
He
what
got run over by a truck, right?
Yeah.
Chasing the snowmobile.
Well, he's been married 3 times. His first wife, 4 times, yeah.
And
And these are all her brothers? I got lost here.
they're my brother's children.
Right.
Uncle
Yeah, they're all Arthur's children. Okay, gotcha.
And then Wallace married Pearl Smith. And they had 2 children. Dinah Claire. And she married Ralph Jones.
Which were cousins.
Yeah, distant cousins. And then Wally Eugene, who married Betty Ford.
And they had 2 boys, right?
2 boys, Kenny and Stacy. I did give you Ina's children,
No, you
didn't
didn't. I don't think we got that on tape.
I thought I
We
did.
talked about that at the
Kitchen table, yeah.
I thought I-
Connie and
It was Donnie Earl, Linda, Anita, and Connie.
Connie's dead and Donnie Earl.
I remember, Donnie Earl did too?
Yeah, he died when Infant.
I remember the girls being real cute.
Mhm.
They still live out on the old highway going to Belgrade?
Uh-huh.
The girls are both married.
Linda
Linda
lives in
and
Billings, and
Who's she marrying, you know?
Ray Stroll. She was married before, but she married Ray Stroll. And they have two girls, Lisa and Anita.
And Anita has,
Wait a minute, Lisa and Tanya.
Anita has two.
Anita has two. She has Angie and Kevin. She married I can't even think right now.
Lucille has 6 girls, right?
Yes.
What are all their names? I can't remember.
Is Mary, Lucy, Kathy, Judy, Lucy,
Debbie,
Debbie.
and Jackie.
No, Jackie and then Debbie. Jackie's older than Debbie.
Yeah.
And those were all by Ted Welch?
Yeah.
She's remarried now.
Night, night, sweetheart.
And the girls are,
Betty passed around.
I couldn't give you that information now. Mary's been married twice. Kathy's husband was killed in Okinawa.
You want to kiss Grandma's night-night?
Come over here. I gotta get a picture of this.
You go around the camera.
Gotta get a picture of this. I've been wanting to get a picture of you all the
Three
time.
generational women.
There now. Who's that in there, sweetie? Who's that?
Is that Jessica?
Is that
With
Jessica?
Grandma and Grandma?
Is that Jessica?
Great Grandma Moore? Hi. Hi. Can you say hi?
Got a big love for Grandma?
Hi,
Hey, Jessica. Got a big love for Grandma?
Kiss Grandma night, Jessica.
Kiss Grandma night-night, Jessica.
Mmm. That was sweet.
Come on.
Night night.
That's a precious.
Night-night, sugar.
You better turn the thing off a while.
Kiss Grandpa.
Okay,
No,
going
let's
to
keep her
Grandma,
going.
Grandma and
Yeah.
Grandpa Border, Mother. I know that
Let's
Grandma
do-
Border had one brother, right? She was a Wrenchler, right?
Yes.
Wrenchler?
Wrenchler.
And
How's
I
that
think,
spelled? You know, in case somebody want to look some of these up, the names might, run across them.
well, I think you've got it written down
Her
somewhere.
brother was a bachelor. It's R-E-N-C-H-E-L-E-R, I think, Wrenchler.
Wrenchler.
But anyway, I think her mother was a Kraus.
Yeah, that's where the Krauses come in, yeah.
Her mother was a
This is
Kraus, I think.
Grandma Border.
Grandma Border.
Great grandma or
My grandmother Border, which was your Grandpa Border's mother.
okay.
And
Her
I
name was
don't-
Kraus.
And I don't know
Her
now.
name was Wrenchler. Her mother's name was Kraus.
Well, that's really going back some years.
Yeah.
And
Spell with a K or a C or?
K. No, it's a C, isn't it?
no, see.
Yeah, C.
And there were 3 children. There was, and I'm not sure which order they were in. I kind of think Teeny was older. I guess her name was Christine, probably.
Oh, I
She married George Dale.
That's where the Dales come in. I forgot about Aunt Teeny.
And she was married before she married
Grandma
Dale.
Border's sister?
Yes, Grandma Borders.
Grandma Border's sister.
My
And
great.
she had a brother, Jack Wrenchler. It'd be easy enough to find his record, you find the death record. You could find out how to spell it.
He was a bachelor all his life, right?
And he was always dirty.
They call
Everybody
him Dirty
talked about
Jack.
George.
how
Dirty
bad
Jack.
he
No, this
spelled.
was Dirty Jack. This
How-
was Grandma Border's brother.
I remember one Thanksgiving, she'd always bake up an extra pie for her Uncle George's Border, and she said, I wonder who will get dinner for Jack. She didn't dare have her own sister to her house, or her own brother, I mean.
He was that much of a hermit and,
Oh, yeah.
Well, your grandpa Border was persnickety, I guess.
what do you mean?
Well, she just wasn't feel welcome to have her own brother at her house.
Oh.
And then anyway, they
Did I
were,
know Uncle George? I seem to remember an Uncle George.
That was, Grandpa Borders. We'll get into that after we get
Anyway.
Grandma Borders.
she married Frank Border,
Okay.
who was your grandpa Border.
Was their name changed at that time?
I don't know when it was changed, if ever, or what, but anyway, they was.
No, the last name, the spelling. Didn't you say something about
I
that?
don't know, really. But anyway, there was Lena, who was the oldest. She married,
No, but going back to Grandpa Borders, though, he
well,
had...
I haven't got into that family. Let's get the grandmothers first, and then
Okay.
we'll go there. There was Lena, well, yeah, I mentioned Frank, yeah, she married Frank. It was James Frank, his name was. And Lena was the oldest, and she married Everett Worry. And they had 3 daughters. Then Roanna, she was married to Seth Gohart, and then she married Turner.
And then there's Uncle Ray.
And Raymond, what was his other name? Can't even think. Married Frankie Higgins. And they had 2 girls, Rosalie and Ray and Dan. Then
Little Ray was 11 when she died, right? She's buried in Boise, or in Weezer, right?
I'm not sure. I think it's Boise where she's buried. I'm not sure.
Well, they lived in Weezer
Yeah,
when she died.
I believe she was buried in Boise. And then your dad and I were married. We had the 3 kids.
That wasn't that long ago.
You got that down. I don't have to repeat all
What?
that, do I? Anyway, we had the
Jim,
3.
and John.
Jim, G, and John, Son, Sis, and Bud.
Well, where are we into now? You guys, huh?
Then, as Alice married Abe Birkenpass, and they had 2 boys, Darrell and Dwayne. Dwayne's the oldest, Dwayne, and then Darrell. Then Margaret, Ted, married Ruby, what the thunder was her name? Yeah. Anyway, they had Bob and Kenny,
And Jerry.
Jerry, and Marlia.
I could not think of Bobby's name.
Then, and Margaret, she married Jim Schaefer, and then they separated, and she married this Gifford, is it?
Jack Gifford.
Gifford. Anyway, she had no children. So that,
She was a nurse.
yeah.
And then you forgot,
They've got Ted in there, Ray.
Oh, I didn't have Lena's children. Oh, I left off Lena's children. She had Norma and Merle and Francis. And Norma has 1 son. She married,
oh gosh, I forgot she had a
I,
son. This is a good-looking kid.
the boy's name is Mike, I believe. And I don't know what the last name is. And Merle married Max Hager. And they had Ronnie. And then the twins,
Why don't you say begat instead of had?
No, Dad.
Gary,
I hate you, Dad.
Gary, and oh, what's the girl's name?
Huh.
Hmm,
I want to say Sharon, but it isn't.
isn't Joan, is it?
Mhm.
Carol.
Carol.
Gary and Carol.
Yeah, because Gary's wife's name's Carol too, isn't it? There's two Carols there and two Rons.
I guess you're right.
Carol married a Ron, and then she has the boy named Ron.
Mhm. Well, now,
Gary lives in Portland, right?
What's
Yes.
his name? Gary what?
Gary Hager.
Hager.
Then on the borders, let me see. There was quite a family of them. There was Pete and Henry, John,
Charlie, George,
Charlie, George,
and Bert.
Frank, and Bert. I think Bert was the youngest.
These are all Grandpa's brothers?
Yeah.
And then they got to talking. This
And
is
then
what
there
Bud
was
mentioned.
3 sisters, I believe. There was only 2.
I've forgotten.
One of them married a Ross, and the other one married a Huddleston. And it seems to me like there was another one.
Where did that Norma Cole come in that was related to us, wasn't she?
She was a Ross, I believe.
Oh,
Grandpa had all these brothers and sisters.
Yes.
and there was one brother. See, this is where Bud got to talking, because there was
This
one
Dean.
one brother that had left before they ever got here, and Aunt Alice was talking.
Where'd they come from?
Was there a few of
Well,
them?
I don't know. Some of them I think came from Indiana, from someplace. I just don't know.
Okay, now, do you know about the spelling? Mom was saying something about the spelling.
Well, as far as I know, it's always been the same, but, anyway, this is off the subject, but we were, this cousin of Roy's was up here, and anyway, said something about Albuquerque, Bud selling motorhomes, and they were interested in a new motorhome, and I told Bud Border, Border. Well, she had a student, his name was Mrs. John Border. And somebody in, where was it? Anyway, got to wondering if it could be this long-lost brother's family. But anyway, I think Henry or Pete or John, some of them were older. Anyway, Henry Border's family. There's a string of them. There's Ernest, and Elmer, Blanche, Evelyn, Elizabeth, and all of them.
Where does Heine come in?
Oh, that's
Henry's, isn't
Henry's grandson.
he? Oh.
Oh, let me see. This was John's family. I was given one that. Ernest, and Elmer, and Blanche, Evelyn, Elizabeth. I think there was another one, but I can't be sure.
Now, who were the girls married to that gave us all these
Huh?
I know we had over 200 relatives at one time.
And then Henry's family. There was Roy Border, tiny dad, and Mary Cloniger,
That's where the Clonigers come in.
Yeah.
and
We were related to
Sturza,
them.
This is different than
who
Edward.
married Sturza married Louis Bear, and Leela married Doc Fishley, and then they took her niece out there to work for them, and she split them up and married her husband.
Is Leela the one that was in Warm Springs?
No. And then Sam Border. In fact, I went to junior prom with Sam when I was a senior in high school. That's
Well,
him.
Sam's the doctor, right?
Yes, he died, I believe. I'm sure he died. And anyway, Henry, wait a minute, Roy had Dave and Heine, or Clyde is his name. And Mary Coniger had, there was Louis, and Jack, and Ida.
And Sammy. Sammy
I
was
made
the
it.
one that was,
Oh, Sammy, yeah, Sammy was the
Sammy
youngest.
was the cripple, wasn't
Mhm.
he?
You guys want some ice cream?
No.
Any of you?
Wait a minute, till I get through with this. Then Sturza, oh wait a minute, the Clonigers, that was the Cloniger, wasn't it? Then Sturza married Louis Bear, and they had this Virgine, who's a dead ringer for you,
She lived
and
in
Louis. She lived in, just out of Seattle.
Tacoma, wasn't it?
No,
Bremerton?
I've got the address in my address book. Anyway, she was going to come see me when I was out there at Shirley's, and then she had somebody coming to buy an expensive colt, and she couldn't come. And then Leila never had any children. And Sam had 2 children by his first wife. She's the one that died in Warm Springs,
Mm.
his wife. And I don't know about his children. And he was remarried after that.
Well, which was the cripple?
Hmm?
Which one was the crippled one? Wasn't it a Cloniger, Mary Cloniger's son? The one was a hunchback or...
Oh, he was quite hunchbacked.
He
Yeah.
was crippled, he was a
Uh,
hunchback, he was
Very stooped
very
shoulders.
stooped, he wasn't crippled.
They was, the
Under
whole
him.
family was quite stooped, really, kind of round
That's where I
shouldered.
get it. They used to say I
The
did.
Henry Borders, that was. And then Elmer, I don't know anything about Ernest's family. He had several children, but they moved out to Seattle, and I've lost track of them. But Elmer then had Dare, Virginia Dare. Dare, she married a Gumprick.
Yeah.
What?
Gumprick.
Like
Gumprec.
Something like that.
Gumprick, yes.
And Jerry, their boy, married L.V. Blackwood.
Now Jerry's the one that's, what does Jerry do? I forgot.
I don't know. He's been very active in the Mormon church, I know. And the last I know, they were in Chicago. But by the way, I didn't realize how much he and Jay looked alike. So he was down at the airport when when Roy's cousin was leaving, flying down at the airport. And he was a dead ringer for Jay. I never realized how much they looked alike until then. And let me see. Yeah,
Wanted to meet your daughter down?
and that's Elmer's.
And then Bobby is whose?
I got a little sidetracked somewhere, didn't I?
Well, you were
Go
talking
ahead.
about Grandpa's brothers and that, and
Yeah.
that's his.
Well, Uncle George never had any children.
This is John. Oh, wait.
Dave John's kid.
Yeah. Well, now I got off on Regine.
That's you're talking about with Elmer.
Elmer's son. Yeah, I got sidetracked. But I was on the Clonigers. And I don't know, on the Henry Borden family. Let's see, Sturza was married to Bear. And Regine, now I don't, kinda got sidetracked here. I was on one family and I got off on another one. I was in
What did Grandpa do all his life?
farms.
Oh, where do George and Phyllis and them? That's Charlie, right?
No, they're
Bert.
Bert's, but, let me see, I got Henry's and John's and Pete, I didn't give yet.
No.
Pete, there was billboarders. And, he married a tender. And, then his sister Mabel married the tender, married Bill Tender. And then Stell was married to Gruel. I don't know which order those kids were in. I think Mabel was the youngest, though. That's Pete. That's Pete Borders'
Well,
family.
I didn't get ice cream. I didn't know you were up here getting it.
Then Bert Borders' kids were Ralph, Phyllis, and George. And I'm not sure whether Phyllis was the oldest or Ralph the oldest. But I would sure love for you guys to meet Virgine, because she makes me think so much of Jean. And you said Phyllis. Why don't you choke that a while?
You want?
Just cut it off a while.
Well, Mother, you can talk and
You
still
talk and eat ice cream. I'm enjoying it.
We're enjoying it.
Give me a rest.
Well, we're just talking.
I know. I get
Okay, hit
sidetracked.
it. Well, I gotta do it because I gotta turn my.
Homemade ice cream, you can't beat that, can you?
You sure got me a big enough spoon.
Well, you better
the
do it
others
where
were
we got
all
to make a
dirty.
gift between Michael and me.
Okay, that's because I grabbed, to give you a break on going back into the family then. I mean, just about other things. What was life like when you were growing up?
We didn't have automobiles and TV and electric lights and radio. You had to go and freeze your butt and out.
Okay, were you born out,
You didn't have radios then.
or were you raised out on the old homestead then?
Yep.
In that cabin?
Well, that was the kitchen. Used to be. I can't remember.
That was the what?
That was the kitchen.
You must have been a hell of a big cabin then, huh?
There was another house that was in front of that burned down.
Yeah, okay.
And now whether I was born in the cabin or in the other part, I'm not sure. But I can barely remember when they added on the other kitchen to the big house. And they pulled that back there, and it's been my playhouse ever since, as it still is.
They pulled the cabin back. I didn't know that. No.
Oh, yeah. They had it on skids and skidded it back there. And it sat there till the folks fixed it up and lived in it.
I didn't know that. I'm going to start to add. Oh, you went to school with Roy Walton now, right?
Yeah.
Who's Roy Walton?
And that was the old schoolhouse that was there right across from where Leonard and them lived now, right?
No, it was right there where Sam Hoffman's house is, where the school
Well,
house.
who we used to know that lived there by the old schoolhouse. We used to visit them, some old people.
Oh,
They,
Oil?
Huffman's. Huffman's? Was it Huffman?
oh,
Hoyles, yeah.
Oh, Doyle, yeah, Donna and George House.
Yeah,
That's
George.
where the country club,
Across my country club.
where their tennis court is now. Well, that's where Ralph Jones's granddad homesteaded, or had lived on that place. Ralph's granddad had that place.
What
Ralph,
was it, a several-hour drive into town from where you live now, back then?
oh, you could make it in an hour. I have made it in 25 minutes horseback.
Well, didn't the train used to go out there? Didn't you used to hop the train?
Saturdays, it just run out there on Saturdays. I used to come in on that old turkey bed special, take my music lessons.
How many years did you go to school with Jerry Cooper? He's been my idol.
Well, he was a sophomore, when I was a freshman in high school, so I went to high school with him 3 years.
And see, that's something else that's interesting, I think, you know.
What?
That she went to school with Gary.
Oh, I think he is just super actor. I think he was the best of all time.
Well, he gives that teacher, Ida Davis, credit for.
Well,
being there.
she was county superintendent of schools when I started the school. Then I had her for a teacher in high school.
What'd you do? Teach drama then?
Mhm.
Then I took care of her when she had a
I had a
stroke.
teacher too.
You did?
I do too.
But I had, then I took care of her when she had a stroke.
Well, did you know any other famous people? Did you go to school with any other famous people?
Me.
Shit.
My brother-in-law was professor of law at Yale for years.
Yeah, he was. God, he was a brain.
I went to school with Judge Leslie too, and his wife.
But his family was good.
Who's Rhonda?
She's taking a shower.
Oh,
Oh, I shouldn't, I guess I
So
should
everybody farmed then, huh?
realize that.
yeah.
Well, what else did your grandpa do besides farming now? I know he had the Packard ship, the Packard deal. Didn't he?
That wasn't Grandpa, that was, well, it was your grandpa, yeah, my dad.
Yeah.
Well, after he sold the ranch, he went into the, garage business, and
That's what
then,
Mike's talking about.
yeah, and then what did he do after that? Forgotten.
He went down to Arizona and had a liquor store.
But he ran for,
Oh, yeah, I remember that. He went down to Arizona.
he
What
ran
did
for
he
sheriff for
Yeah, he
2
got a
terms
partner down.
before he ever went out Menard. He did do that, but he lost. He was county commissioner though, or county,
No, soil conservation.
soil
law.
conversation.
I never knew he opened a liquor store in Arizona.
Yeah. That's where he got all that bottle collection that's gonna be mine. That's
What-
one thing Ethel did say that she wanted me to have.
Yeah, but I don't mean we'll get it.
Well,
But,
Sandra said I would, and
but
she's gonna
that's-
send you something, and Mary something. She already had told me on the phone when I talked to her.
Good.
the other
And
day.
really going to,
Soil conservation
they
office.
don't want much flowers, so we say like, they want
They have a
contribution
memorial
to-
fund.
Shriners Hospital in memory of your grandfather.
There's a fund already built up, a memorial fund, at the Shrine Children's
Well, I'm supposed to
Hospital
collect
in
about
Spokane.
$2,000 before I leave.
But we're gonna just send a donation to that, but I do wanna write Sandra, and I thought maybe you'd like to. But anyway, Grandpa legally adopted Skip and Sandra, so they are actually my half-brother and sister.
Yeah, you told me that.
Not half.
They're just adopted, they're not half.
Yeah, adopted, stepbrother and sister, all right?
Yeah. Right.
You'll get the end of the border fortune, that's what's left of it.
Who?
Two adopted them.
Well, he had to have a fortune, because Mom was telling me in '55 when he moved off the ranch, that he sold out for $500,000.
So he,
Well, he had a gold mine over by,
he didn't even have the gold
Livingston.
mine, he blew most of the fortune in that garage.
Yeah, he did.
What?
He blew most of the fortune in the
Where did he
garage.
make his fortune from the
But
ranch?
that ranch out there, he bought it for about $3.5, $4 an acre. And he got a $5,600 check from the government 1 year from the soil conservation. It paid for the darn ranch.
Well, if that's 10 sections and where that ranch is located now, that thing would be worth millions, wouldn't it? Nowadays, today's
Probably
market.
a lot more, yeah, with the price of
Well,
land.
probably 20, 30, 40 million.
Oh, I know.
But,
Oh, yeah.
you know, that's what put the government in such a bind, this soil conservation business. They've subsidized so darn many things, and instead of letting free enterprise, I don't know.
I'll get
Now,
back
Mom,
to
didn't you say the one place on Grandpa's ranch you could see White Sulphur and Townsend?
you could see Three Forks, Manhattan, Belgrade, Towson, Townsend.
Maybe you said White Sulphur too.
No, I don't think White
No.
Sulphur.
Well,
But
there were
Denari,
relays.
Mama.
Savile was good, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, getting back to Grandpa Border's family.
Okay, which one made the violins? And you were telling me,
That was Uncle George
I was
made
gonna call him,
huh?
I thought it was Jack. That's right.
Jack was a hammer.
Mm.
Bert was really a cabinet maker. He made beautiful furniture.
Well, what about the violins George made? Were they good?
I don't know, he was a musician. He used to play for dances and he was crippled.
No. Mom, didn't you think there's a
And
couple of
Joanna was
violins
crippled.
around?
I don't know anything about any of these violins. Margaret might have some of them, I don't know. Margaret had more of his stuff than anybody.
Don't be playing with them on the camera. They'll think you're going back in your separate cell.
I'm just picking up your daughter's stuff.
I didn't think she's going back to
Anyway.
the house.
Charlie, did he have children?
Charlie. I don't know.
I didn't think he had
Oh, but the Ross, I just tell you, I don't know enough about the Ross, and I don't know who could give you that information.
Have you got at home, have you got a family?
The light switch, I was gonna turn off that light.
When'd you get those two? I didn't see.
I don't know why you don't
those
turn
two
that off a while.
Got them
Um,
furniture.
We wanna watch that show at 10, we gotta get as much of this done as we can.
What show were you watching at 10?
Falcon Crest. Bert was, a father to George and Ralph and
Phyllis.
Phyllis.
Top Chris is on tonight. I haven't seen him last week though, have I?
Did too. This is Friday night.
No,
It's
it's
Thursday night, Mom.
Oh, shoot,
So we can just keep going. Okay, let's go out and get more history.
Let's go some more ice cream.
Take a break and have some more.
but,
I'm sure I have my finger up right on there.
But what?
well, you got your family, Jim's, their kids. Well, Jim,
I can't remember.
Jay and Shirley and Dick,
Little Jim's.
Oh, you sit still. I was having to sleep.
and
Oh, I
of course
can't remember.
Jay's got,
3 girls.
Yeah.
Jimmy Ann,
Jimmy Ann and
Jody,
Jody and
John.
Giovanna
and then Shirley has
and Paige and Joni.
I know where I'm gonna get it.
and Dick.
Right there.
Dick has got one on the way.
How's your finger?
Dick and Sonia
I have operated
I found
on
this
it.
cute
I
card.
didn't like to have it operated on. I
said
have operated on
to
it.
the expected mother and the
Huh?
man who contributed.
Oh.
I sent it to him.
I already banned it and it's called a trigger finger. See it? I'll show you.
Yeah, you showed me.
Can't, no, I can't move it. Can't move it by itself.
Oh, my mom used to always board the school teacher, not give her spending money. And they'd take the butter, and Mom made butter, and they'd take the butter and eggs to town and trade them for the groceries.
That's what my grandfolks.
You know,
They did barter
this is-
system, huh?
this is what it's going back to, you know, these flea markets and this garage sales and stuff. It was just like the old farmer's market, everybody's getting,
My grandmother, he made rolls and stuff and took into
Oh,
town.
they had this farm market,
Oh,
yes. They used to, my mom would make cakes and pies, and they'd go and take them down and sell them.
Was this on consignment, or did they just get to sell their own?
They just sold their own.
Well, you know, there's a place in LeGrand now that has, where you can take your vegetables and stuff.
What was the
like that.
population of Bozeman when you remember growing up? A couple hundred, a couple thousand, or?
6,000 when I was going there.
Oh, I don't know. I
Fonda, we
think,
all had homemade ice cream.
I think it was when I
You
was in
get
high
some
school, it was
almost
around 5,000.
Me too. That big, huh?
About 6,000 when we went to school, when I went to school.
People need you.
Oh, some more in that bowl. I mean, when I get
That's
it.
more too.
But do you know how many
Huh?
students they had at the university there this year?
Oh, no, I was blowing.
11,290 something.
Students?
Students,
At the college?
yeah.
Well, how big is
You guys
Bozeman
into
now?
something.
Well, I don't-
30,000.
I'm not gonna let go. if we
Okay,
get
now let's get into Bud's kids. Now, what are all their kids' names?
Yeah, I need a break.
Well,
Huh?
I need
Steve,
a rest.
it. Good, just come over and sit down.
Not yet.
Steve,
Made the,
Kim, what was it, Gray,
I didn't mean
and they're in Texas now.
Huh?
He's working for some
They don't play
pharmaceutical
bridge?
company. He went to New York for 2 weeks training,
Okay.
and he,
Don's still in Hawaii?
yes, he's stationed in Hawaii, I guess,
He's in the service.
in the Navy, and he hopes to be in New York or the East Coast next
Quite a
spring.
bunch you got over there.
sometime.
And Dean is
Isn't
going to Boston
Isn't it?
to become a
Isn't
lawyer,
it?
right?
Yes.
And Valerie, what's she doing?
Valerie's going to
About-
school
about-
and working part-time.
And then there's one and I, and we
You get
have
any
two
more
brats.
kids?
Oh, hush up about the brat.
You had the brats? We didn't.
There's Michael.
We don't need to know about all that. I know that shit.
Yeah, but somebody else
It
might
just
not
won't be
be.
on this tape, is that?
You're not running the tape now, are you?
Of course we are.
Oh, forget. No, that's better talk like that.
Mike and Gary and Shane, Jessica.
And then Mary has Jerry Lynn.
Yeah, but I'm gonna have some more. If they can all be girls, it's the only way to go.
I don't know.
That's for sure. I should have drowning you and had 2 more girls.
Yeah.
Suppose?
I suppose.
Is there anything else that we should get on?
I think you should just
I would,
cut it off a while.
like to find out about what life was like besides just that you didn't have electricity. Did you have to ride a horse to school or?
We used old Shanks ponies. We walked a good deal of the time.
Well, going back, Aunt Em built a hospital in Moore, Montana, right? And
Well,
when
that was later though. No, but I used to run away and go to school before I was old enough. I liked to go to school.
Oh, you
as
never
well.
mentioned very much about Wally, did you? Oh yeah, Wally and Pro right now. What? How come he died so young? What was wrong with him?
Cancer. But we walked to school. We had a foot log across the creek. We walked across the creek. And it was only half mile that way.
Was that the school you went to by the golf course?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And if we went around the road, it was a mile.
Well, Grandpa, then your mom and dad, they own quite a bit of land there.
No, not very big.
They own
It
all
was,
that from where you are and clear over where Arthur is.
No. That's where Arthur was Nelson's. He bought that. 160 acres, that's what you got on the homestead. And that's what the folks had originally, and my grandmother had, but they'd sold off part of it before, so they didn't have that much.
well, what Uncle Wally and Aunt Pearl had wasn't on the original homestead.
Oh, no, that was, well,
Hers. That was her Pearl's family.
Pearl's stepfather.
Who got that old Buick you used to have up there in the barn? The Wally used to have up in the barn.
Wasn't a Buick, Oldsmobile.
Oldsmobile.
Oh, Pearl let it deteriorate. I think she was supposed to have got $100 for it. I don't know if she did or not. She could have got a new Chevy for it at one time, but she wouldn't do that.
Well, didn't you
She
tell
put him and
me?
lived at 280, she got $100.
That's what I heard she got for it.
Didn't I understand you used to go by covered wagon, though, or, wagon, horse and buggy or something over to see Aunt, Em,
Oh, no, we never went over with horse and buggy to see them, and I remember them.
I thought you told me about
I remember
staying
my folks
overnight.
took
But
the horse
we
and buggy to
used-
Lewistown from.
Well, oh, that's
Oh,
what,
the folks, you know.
Bozeman to Lewistown?
By horse and buggy.
How many days was that?
2 or 3, they'd have to stay at ranches.
They stayed at, one they went down, one time they went through Tofton, stayed at Tofton overnight. How would they do that?
And he homesteaded out there at Winfred too, didn't he, Grandpa?
Well,
Yeah.
that's the Harding side
That's
now,
the Harding
yeah.
side.
And
But,
the Shells and so forth.
I wanna get into that too.
But we, used to go to town, and of course always team, and we had a spring wagon, and, we'd haul our groceries in it, and
My brother used to take me to the show 2.5 miles every Friday night on a horse and buggy.
Huh.
oh, I was in high school. No, let me see, I guess I was in 8th grade when the folks got a car,
And
our first automobile. And the salesman taught us all to drive before we bought a car.
Huh.
But Grandma never drove it over, did she?
No, my mom never did drive.
I didn't think she did.
my dad bought a new
Okay, now
Ford.
Grandpa, oh, go ahead.
My dad bought a new Ford, and my brother took it out, took it over upside down to go. About the first week they had it.
But I remember when old George Pease got an automobile, we got his old driving horse and buggy. That was kind of a fancy buggy. And my mom never would even drive a horse. She wouldn't even drive a horse through a gate. She'd get out and open the gate before she'd drive a horse through the gate. But I
Why
remember,
wouldn't you drive a horse through a gate?
oh, she just didn't want to drive him.
What'd you do for your outhouse? Just dig a hole and then when you filled it up, move it and dig another one?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. I kind of figured that's what happened. I didn't know.
It's like landfill.
And then there was the 2-holers and
We have a three-holer.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I had Denny tear that thing down.
we always had.
Yeah, I wish you wouldn't have torn
Yeah.
it down either. I remember.
Always had catalogs. And when we were home, Bud got to tell him about him and Frankfurt. And they never, Aunt Elsie used to have a fit because the toilet seat was always wet, when she'd go out there. They says they weren't guilty because they always went out behind to see who could shoot the highest, see on the back of the truck. I said, Bud, you forget that there was cracks in the toilet seat. You guys are probably the guilty ones all the time. Anyway, Bud had this book. He was telling about,
Oh, I got those. You've seen those Bob Ross books on the outhouses? Meanders in the outhouses?
Anyway, Bud said he was reading this one, and there it was. These 2 kids was out behind the outhouse trying to see who could shoot the highest. And Bud said, he just cracked up, and the kids couldn't figure out what was wrong with him.
Now,
And he said him and Franklin used to go out and see who could shoot the highest on the back of the outhouse.
now didn't
Peter.
Nettie and Leonard, they lived in the homestead for a while, didn't they?
Yeah, they
'Cause
lived
I remember
there.
them living there.
Yeah.
Well, my folks lived in it for a long time.
Oh.
Then a couple years ago, Denny and I, a couple of years ago, longer than that, 5 years, we took all the old,
Newspapers?
all the paper and cloth off the inside and put new mortar in the cracks.
I'll get me some
Yeah, would you get us some too?
first more.
Yeah.
Do you want more, Mother? Did we finish with the border plan?
Yep.
All the borders?
All I can think of. But I'm talking about our school and the one. And then even
When were you born? When was Arthur born?
1901,
born
Arthur was born in
1740.
1901, Wally in 1902, and I'm in 1905.
You went to college. You got a degree, right? In nursing, right?
Yep.
Since he was 60.
She went into
I remember going to your graduation. Didn't I go to your graduation?
I'm not sure whether
Up
you
at the
did or
Bozeman
not.
College out on the lawn? I'm positive I did. I went to
You
somebody's
was
graduation.
up the house probably when we was taking pictures
I don't
afterwards.
remember. I didn't go.
I remember being up at the
I
college.
don't think I
Well,
remember that.
I don't know. But anyway,
Could have sworn I was up there,
then,
sitting on
in the
folding chairs.
winter, we didn't have paved roads in those days, and cars just didn't run through a foot of mud, so Arthur and I rode horseback into high school quite a bit of the time.
Well, I remember going out
At the
to
Wally
Grandpa's
Resort.
ranch and shit, we used to have to walk up the driveway most of the time. Remember?
No,
I can
Nice
remember
snow,
when
I know.
Main Street was a mud too.
I don't remember that. That was a little
Do
patchy.
you remember, was there a lot of outlaws back then times, or? was it-
I don't know, you didn't hear as much about crime in those days as you
Yeah,
did.
but you had your horse thieves and
Oh, yeah. And you had your shooting scrapes, people,
Go out and shoot each other.
but,
some of my brother,
I used to milk cows, yeah, I raised chickens.
they had a hanging and at the, I think it's the first hanging of Gallatin County Jail, I think. And of course, this, like folks were talking about, it was talk of conversation, how it was done and everything and so on. And so my brother went out to the barn, I guess, and hung his dog. just hung it, killed it.
Oh, I
Work.
tell you.
Yeah.
Dog.
No, I tell you. Oh, weekends we used to go to the circus. And then we had some trapeze hooked up out in the old buggy shed. We'd go out there and I used to be pretty good. I'd get on and throw my legs up over this thing and climb up into the...
Dad, I could enjoy my damn ice cream without
You
you.
should have pants, that would have been a pretty good sight. Yeah. They wear long pants, that would have been a pretty good sight. Hey,
And we always had our horses to play
Ice
with.
cream,
go like what?
your feet, my ice cream.
I remember when they put in that old Milwaukee Railroad, the contractor had his family out there for the summer. And they camped right there between where I lived and where Barton was. And those kids had never seen a cow milked, never ridden a horse, and we really showed them around.
McElhatton still raising ponies? Shetlands?
Not too many. They're raising buffalo now.
They are?
They got buffalo out there.
My great grandfather, your great grandfather Harding helped build with horse
Where's our ice cream?
and a scoop, helped build the road from Bozeman.
Sure, we might as
you
well
want some
let them have it all.
Yeah?
Did it by horse and by, you know what a scoop is?
I
Yeah.
don't want any, Mom.
Do what?
My grandfather, yeah, helped build the road from Bozeman to West Yellowstone.
Yeah.
That was done by horse and scoop.
Well, when they put in that railroad down there, that's what they'd have, these old scoops and a team of horses. Sure, that's the way they did all that grading stuff in those days. They didn't have all these backhoes and bulldozers and stuff like they have now. You had a team of horses and this little shovel and you dig up the dirt and the thrashing, heavens.
Oh, I love the old thrash machine.
You'd have a big crew for thrashing and
Go from,
cook
oh, I
car,
missed.
have a cook car and have, probably out of tape.
You could
When they went out with the combines and thrashed the wheat, you mean?
That was the other combine had the old thrash machine where it took several
They
crews to
mow
run
it,
one.
mow it with the binder.
They'd go from one farm to the next, and all the farmers would work from one.
Co-op deal.
Yeah, they kind of co-op between one ranch to the next ranch. You know,
They trade work. The person would take their team
And then whoever house it was at, the women all got together and cooked the meals for them, and you maybe had 40
and,
people.
well, now,
that
years
way.
ago, they used to have a whole crew in the, run a cook car. Whoever had the thrash machine, they'd have a cook
we never
car.
had that.
Huh?
We never had that.
Later years, they didn't always, but they used to. They had the cook car and everything. The Prestons first came down there, they
I imagine using catalogs for toilet paper.
I remember my
Oh.
grandmother cooking for weeks and ahead of time from the thrashers, getting things ready so she could get ready.
I remember
So,
using
oh,
catalogs
the
for
thrashers
toilet
come out
paper.
there at your place then, huh?
It wasn't bad till you got to the slick sheets, but those slick sheets.
I remember using
Oh.
catalogs for toilet paper.
Oh, shoot.
That's all we had down there.
That's something else Bud and I got to talking about, because the minute we get through eating, Lucille and I'd head for the job, so we didn't get out of doing dishes, you know. Even Lucille and I talked about it when I stopped to see her. And you know, Gary and Shane just loved it, meeting all the relatives and everything. They couldn't get over
You
it.
never mentioned, Leonard's kids either. Stanley, Gary, and Howard. In fact, that Howard died at what, 31? He was 31 when he
I
died?
forgot, no, just one.
Andrew, your foot over into my ice cream.
What?
Andrew, you're gonna be sorry.
Pardon?
He was working on
See
a
what you're
telephone
doing.
What
building,
do you guys gonna do?
and,
like your foot
and
in my
was
ice cream.
No,
touched the
we
hot
do that.
wire and was knocked to the ground and never really regained consciousness.
Well, I heard he did. And he was, everything else, and the blood clot formed in his leg afterwards, after he was well.
Right.
Well,
That's
he
what I
wasn't,
heard.
he wasn't really well, but he was conscious. He had an awful lot of pain in that leg.
You.
It is.
Grandpa?
Ah,
Grandma? Do something with him.
I can't.
Michael, get it.
Ow! Ow!
All you gotta do is grab his ingrown toe.
Oh, God.
boy, you're mean.
I have two ingrown toes. I know how it hurts.
But years ago, they had the old opera house, and there used to be traveling shows come through, you know. The old Bozeman Hotel, there used to be a walkway across the street. So
Is that place still there?
Remember
Both
that.
hotels still there?
the Bozeman Hotel is still there, but it isn't a hotel anymore.
Well, didn't Kirk had something to do with that? He had a disco or something in the basement of that at one time.
He just worked there.
He bartended.
Bartender, that was it, I guess.
But they made that all into little shops.
There was a,
And the old Range Hotel just quit. The last hotel in Bozeman is
What one did?
out of business.
Greenwood?
No hotels left in Bozeman.
Old
What was the
Range.
Range Hotel? You mean
It used to
Baltimore?
be the Baltimore.
Oh,
You did the year end
Year what?
this year?
We'll put it
Uh,
on the tape.
But, oh, that Ellen Theater. Mike, I wish you could see that. That's the most beautiful theater. And they used to have, for intermission, people would play the organ. They had a big organ in that theater. And then they used to have some stage shows there. They don't do that in theaters anymore like they used to.
When was
the old
college
pipe
formed there?
organ.
When was college formed, Grandma?
uh, 18... I don't know.
what about, we're talking about the old time over?
1897 or something like that, I think. There was something, they just had this homecoming just the week before I left. Last Saturday.
Is that part still
Uh,
pretty out there, the one goes out to the cemetery? I always
Mhm.
remember that part. Always such a
I
beautiful
think the
place.
first graduating class was 1903. I'm not
What's that,
sure.
Lorna?
Hmm.
Like that?
Mm-hmm. Good. That's a full one.
Me too. It's good.
And what'd you say about, start saying about the pipe organ?
A pipe organ there in Ellen Theater. Ed Pegram used to, about once a year anyway, they put on a concert there.
Now, that's something Grandma probably enjoyed. Remember the organ grinder when I took you to it?
Yeah.
The big organ?
Is he still alive?
Yes,
Cat, what's her wife's name? Cat, Taxi, I want to say. What's that right?
was he married to her? Cassius?
Ed Picker married her. She was a-
Cassius Coleman?
Yeah. She did. She was a usher, she was a cashier at that theater for
Did
years.
she die?
I don't know, no idea.
Yeah.
Oh, he was living down there at the Darlington.
They went together
When
for
Pearl
years.
was down there. There was somebody at Margaret's funeral the other day.
At whose?
Margaret Thomas's funeral. And I'm not sure, but I think it was Ed Pegram. I said something to somebody, was that Ed Pegram? And
No, is she still living? Or is she still living with him? With Thomas?
she died. I told you.
Margaret, I said, was she still living with Thomas?
Oh, no. I guess he tried to get rid of her. His son came out here, and I guess they figured they was going to get
Some-
ahead,
Some of Margaret's money?
and I guess he beat up on her. Oh, Thomas did, anyway.
I ain't cigarette.
Really-
Well, the other,
Oh, Roberta was her only daughter, right?
Yeah. Oh, Roberta's got a beautiful home.
with all the borders, how come I've never run across a border there? That many
Where does
borders.
Roberta live?
Up at Riverside, they built a new home out there, one of those.
She's still a bold lady, more bold lady than she was?
Regular light?
Oh, I don't know. I had never even noticed it anymore.
Huh? God, she was the most bold-legged girl.
Margaret was more bow-legged than Roberta.
Bold-legged twin.
Would you like a cigarette?
She still stayed married to that Zeke or what was his name?
Oh, heavens, no.
Huh?
She'd been married to Chuck Dudley for a long time.
I didn't know
No, and she and Dick separated, and he committed suicide down in Arizona
that.
someplace.
He did? Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Well, how old were you, Mom, when you broke your, whatever, where you gotta use your enema all the time?
Oh, she didn't bring nothing.
You got that on tape, I hope?
I hope that's on tape.
Oh.
Well, you got thrown from a horse, and what
It's
happened?
all in her mind.
What's this now?
Jim and I were racing to school and the horse fell down and her forelegs flew out from under it. I broke my collarbone. Teachers started to take me
How's
home.
that affect your other end, huh?
Well, anyway, they always said the teacher had a flat where the horse did because she started to take me home and had a flat tire, but I had a broken collarbone, but I also had injured my back at that time and I didn't know it for a year later, but that,
I still don't think that's what happened to your leg. I think you had polio, is what I think. I think you had a mild case of polio. Now, one
Why,
leg,
what's wrong with your leg? What was wrong with your leg?
well, my one leg's about 2 inches longer than the other. It was still from that back injury, I know that.
Now, Nettie had polio.
yeah.
Pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. If they'd have diagnosed it sooner, she might not have been crippled as bad as she is.
Well, I know there's a big fun of it.
Well, I still wonder if Warren and I forced her to walk that time, if that didn't keep her from being an invalid though, because,
Well, you forced her to walk, huh?
yeah, Aunt Elsie kept saying it was in her mind, and your dad and I, one got on one side and one on the other, we made her walk. Walk. And we walked her.
How much did she weigh? She was a big woman, Elsie.
Aunt Elsie? Oh,
Over
no.
300, wasn't it?
Oh, she weighed over
This is way
300.
more than your mother.
Well, I heard
Way
them say at
300.
one time, I think I heard them say something about she weighed over 400 pounds. They said it took 2 pair of scales to weigh her one time.
Oh, I don't think she weighed no 400
Oh,
pounds.
I heard 375, something like that. What I heard.
Oh, I heard them say that one time they had to use 2 pair of scales to
Oh,
weigh
yeah.
her.
my goddamn that's right.
She was a big woman.
Well, Aunt Em was a big woman at one time too.
Uh-huh.
Aunt Em was.
I don't think I have.
Of course, Aunt Em was never very tall.
Aunt Em wasn't tall like Aunt Elsie and your
Who was the
mother.
dwarf again, you said? That was one of Grandma's?
I sure remember there was a dwarf in the family.
What?
You said one of the family was a dwarf, or the...
Well, Lily Lewis.
That was on the border side, right?
No.
That was on the...
Well,
That was on. outside where Percival, didn't you say?
Yeah.
She was a Percival married to Lewis.
Yeah, her grandmother was a Percival, yeah.
And all Grandpa Reed did was fine. His whole life.
Yeah.
Grandpa
Drag
Reed,
roads and
Grandpa Reed used to walk clear to town and back every day, though. I can remember that.
And when did he went blind because he had something removed on his eye.
no, I don't know why. Well, I tell you, I can remember years ago when they had his
Did he
eclipse.
have cancer in the eye before he died?
Oh, he was full of cancer, I know that.
Well, he had that skin
What about the
cancer.
clips now?
He used to have eclipse, you know, and you take a piece of film, you know,
Right.
look through it, and they say that's real bad for your eyes. And I can remember Dad doing that, you know.
But he had good eyesight. He could see from your place clear out to Gateway and see if we was home or not.
Oh,
Well,
come
not-
on. You
not
could
like
have
that.
been Harding.
Oh, he did have good long vision, though. He could
He could
see
do
a
that.
long distance,
Christ almighty.
but, I
Mom
don't
told me that the other day when she was there.
Well, don't listen to believe everything your mother tells you.
Well, I've been told that. He could tell if we were home or not.
Bullshit.
Why, you never lived in Gateway, did you?
Well, out of Gateway. It was the side of
Gateway,
Gateway.
He couldn't
Yeah,
see,
can
he
you?
couldn't see
Yes.
that place.
Dude.
He couldn't see
You
our
couldn't
place.
see with a... My wife could cook some tall once in a while.
But,
I only went by what I've been told.
Well,
but you could,
think.
he did have good vision. He could
And
see.
he went blind at what age?
Oh, I don't know exactly.
He was 80.
About 80.
For 13 years he was been blind and bedridden. Huh?
10
No.
years
Well,
he's been
no, he
bedridden.
was down
Well,
about
how come he
5
was
years.
bedridden?
Not that
Well,
long.
his legs just, he just didn't exercise enough and keep up, I guess. And he got down in bed and we couldn't get him up and down, and so he just laid there in bed. The last time we had him up, well, then he had to pick him up and put him back in bed. If we'd had the high-low bed sooner, we might have been able to got him up a little bit more. But,
And he never did have a bed sore.
no,
Boy,
Grandma took care of him. She turned him.
oh, he helped to turn himself a good deal. He had the side rails on that bed, and he could help to turn.
What did he weigh when he died? Somebody
Oh,
told me.
I don't know. He wasn't weighed for years, but he wasn't too heavy.
He was like,
Well, yeah, okay, you grew up farming. Did you have a lot of droughts and everything? And crops get
Oh,
ruined?
yes, one year I know everything burned up, and then
It
we
never
had
did please the
Hail.
weather never did please the farmer.
hail storm. We had a hailstorm on Wally's birthday, Wally's 16th birthday. Hail and everything out. They scooped up hail, made ice cream, knocked all the west windows out of the house. And then the old house burned down on Wally's birthday.
See, that's how dumb those people were those days. They had a great big hailstorm come along, wiped out all the crops.
Made ice cream.
So then they had a big celebration and made ice cream out of it.
Well, we didn't have ice hall like you have nowadays. You just took advantage of having some ice. I'm going out and milk the old cows so they can make ice cream too.
She had run out, government out and milked the old cow out with hail
No, I didn't say while it was hailing,
remind me to tell you something
You
after we
never-
turn
you
the
never-
camera off about
This
it.
is on now, is it?
Yes, it
Well,
is.
that's good.
You never milked a cow in your life, did you? You ought to do it for the next
I did. Arthur used to have dairy.
You know.
Have a dairy. He used to have cows anyway, and that warm milk just flat turned me off.
Oh, I can drink warm milk.
And I remember the
I used
bats
to-
he had in the basement down there.
you ever milk one, Mike?
Uh-huh. I pulled their tips.
Yeah.
But you used to love the
You talking about a cow?
milk, fresh milk from the cow. But one time when my
He had
dad,
pigs too.
my
God.
dad had gone, my dad had gone hunting and my grandmother boarded and my mother and I did the milk. I was just a kid and I walked in between these two cows and this one kicked the bucket and kicked me clear out. Oh,
Yeah, I milked 14 heads while they were combining one year with a milking machine.
With a
You know,
milker
well,
machine.
Arthur had a milk machine.
I got my, I
he
just,
had electric separator too, and that's
Yeah.
something that they didn't have.
oh,
Yeah, I remember the electric separator.
my mother.
But did he just use that milk for stuff, or did he sell it to dairies?
Well,
Well,
sold it used to make butter and
That's
stuff,
what I
and
like
then
to-
he'd get
Love to get hold of an old separator. Just love to,
Big
the
Ford.
old,
I
cream
marked it and
separator.
everything.
Uncle Arthur probably has one sitting out there at the ranch
One
someplace.
down his basement.
Or what?
the old
Cream
cream
se-
separator. I'd love to have one out in my yard.
Jim and Helen have got one on their
Isn't it just a
patio.
round thing?
Well, there's two bowls. There's one for the milk and one for the cream, and then there's a
There's
disc
not
that
one that-
separates it, and
The cream runs off the top.
Oh, it's not two bowls.
Is a bowl
One
on
big
top.
bowl hold of milk, and it comes down. You have two spouts come out, one for the cream, one for the skim milk, dummy.
Well, I remember the spout.
You sure you got it all backwards, Gene.
well, there's a bowl that holds the discs because I always had to clean the discs, and you
That
had
wasn't
to
a
wash.
bowl that held them.
Well, kind of a. Anyway.
Well, the old cabin never did have indoor plumbing, and it never,
No, it didn't.
they had a pump outside and all, well, there was
Never
pumping,
had running
pumping in
water
the kitchen, there was
inside.
pump in the kitchen.
No, no
But there was
pumping.
running water inside, huh?
No. I've got cold water out there in the summertime.
Boy, I remember it. God, I don't think I could stand to go to an art house in the winter. That suckers are so cold.
Sure wasn't
It
nice.
used to be terrible. Used
You
to
gotta
be
take a magazine to read for 3
Well,
hours.
especially like that, now you gotta sit on there for 20 minutes, shit.
God, I used to hate it. Oh,
That's the reason you get one under the bed.
That's why I don't like to go camping.
Yeah, and I froze up in the bedroom under the bed.
Do you remember the time that Bud run outside and I think it was Uncle Ted or somebody kept to the house and he was stark naked? He stood out there talking to
Oh, yes. Ted was unloading coal one morning, but he pulled off his sleepers to get dressed and decided he had to run outside, and he had nothing but his bedroom slippers on. He went outside, snowing.
stood there 20 minutes talking to us.
Of course, the grandmother thought I was going to kill Bud because he didn't wear any clothes. I had him in training pants and little shirts when he was 6 months old, sleeveless shirt vest, you know, and training pants when he was 6 months old. Grandmother thought I was going to kill him, sure, because he didn't wear any clothes. But he never even had a cold when he was over 2 years old.
Why don't you trade me places?
Why?
Then you can sit and relax this way and get a little bit on your pants.
Oh, I can't do that. I'd have to.
I was going to take a bath.
Well, you can
one
do what
night.
you can tell what you can
You
think
can
about.
do just like we've been doing.
Turn around and sit down.
Oh,
I want to
I
get
can't
some on.
give it to you.
Yes, you can. You
Oh,
can
I
talk a bit.
can't.
Yes, I want to get some on Harding family too. Grandma can probably help too. Come on. Lie around there and get comfortable in the corner.
I can't give it to you.
Yeah, you
I
can.
don't know that much about it. I really
I'd like to find out, because I know great-grandpa worked on the railroad. And Steve and I worked on the railroad.
What great grandpa? No great grandpa.
Andrew C. worked on the railroad.
That's what I know.
Well, where'd they get the railroad pocket watch that you got in the safety deposit box?
Where did you get it that I've got?
You've got it. Right?
Oh, that's a blank.
Yeah, he worked on the railroad. And I can remember.
Railroad watch. I don't think he ever worked on the railroad.
Yeah, he did. But I also remember that, I can tell you some things I remember. I remember the cavalry uniform that great-grandpa was in 1st Montana Cavalry, Company C. I remember that.
He's in the Spanish-American War.
Well, okay, now let's
When
go
did
back
he go
as far
to-
as you can remember.
When did he go to Hawaii?
When did he go what?
To Hawaii.
He went to,
What did he go to Hawaii for?
He didn't go to Hawaii. He went to, Hawaii. Where did Hawaii come in? He went to, why would he go to Smash American War? Why would he go to Hawaii?
That's what I wondered. Because I never did get the...
It's in China. No. I don't know what the answer is on that.
Okay, well, let's get back. Okay, you remember who your great-grandparents were? Let's go back that far then.
Did Andrew have any brothers or sisters? Andrew
That was
C.
Andrew C. Harding. I remember that much.
Did he have
And he
anybody?
had a sister named Ada that married a Krause.
Was that the same Krause?
No, it's a different Krause, and it was Krause I came with. No, it was. No, it's the C. It was.
My grandfather's mother was, what was her first name?
She was a
She
Ferguson.
was a Ferguson. What was her first name?
Elizabeth?
Elizabeth Ferguson, yeah.
That was Andrew C.'s mother.
Right.
Why?
And
Mother.
they homesteaded down around, or somewhere around, place out of Missoula.
Dearline?
No.
Going the other way?
Missoula going up to oh,
Superior?
town a little bit before Jackson,
Hamilton?
yeah, between Hamilton and Missoula.
Paradise?
Anyway, I can't think of the town. Anyway,
Lolo?
he
No.
was, I think he was custodian of the
That was
Baptist.
his folks, you mean?
His father was a custodian of the Baptist church there, I think, and he died ringing the bell on Sunday, pulling the bell.
He died ringing the bell.
And my grandmother, which was my grandfather's mother, lived to be 97. She died at Spring Hill.
Did I know her?
No.
No.
She always smoked a pipe.
Oh, it's
I know
not
her. I know
What
her.
was her name then?
Grandma Ferguson, Elizabeth Ferguson.
Well, I thought,
Okay, that
Grandma
was it.
Ferguson. And my grandfather had, he had a brother named Clem.
I never knew he had any brothers.
He had a brother named Clem that lived in California. He had a bunch of kids. Then he had a brother Shade.
that's
Shay
one that live out at,
Shade, and his children live out in Tacoma and Seattle area. There's Ruth and Francis and Ed. He had three,
Ed
he had three
Harding.
children. And Ed Harding still lives in Bozeman.
You met Ed Harding one
Met
time.
Ed. He always
He
came to
plays
all-
the piano and
Ed always came to all the funerals and all the.
I don't remember that.
And then he had Shade and Clem and
there was a girl. Wasn't her name Martha or something?
those are the sister that married the Krause. Her name was Ada. That's all I know there was of them.
So we have got relatives up around Tacoma.
Yeah.
Yes, there's some
I can't say what
Harding.
their names are now. And then my grandmother,
What was her maiden name?
what's her maiden name? Gene?
Ferguson.
Okay, yeah.
No.
Yeah, that would be right.
Okay, no.
So,
This
you're
is
talking.
quite interesting because my grandmother's name was McAllister. And right now I live on McAllister Lane in LeGrand. Still the same way.
Now, your grandmother's maiden name was McAllister.
Yeah. And she had,
That's
Well, her
where you
name was
said,
Elizabeth too, wasn't it?
her name was
that's where you
too.
said we had the one relative that was out of Great Falls that did that kiddie show by the name of McAllister. You said he was a relative of yours, a cousin.
He was.
Yeah, okay. Because I remember you telling me that when I was a kid. You said he's a cousin of yours. But now, that's...
Was it Grandma Harding
I
had
can't
any
remember. What was
sisters
it?
or brothers?
One of them made names of Ferguson, one's a McAllister. You got me confused.
Yeah, well, because my grandfather's mother was a Ferguson, but he married a McAllister, and that's where the McAllister part of it comes in. There was my mother, and there was a Charlie McAllister, and I can't remember, Charlie had...
That was your mom's maiden name was McAllister?
No, that was my grandmother's, on the Harding side. Just leave
That's-
my mother out of it.
Okay.
That's where the McAllisters is where Marley's come in, isn't it?
Well, she was a
Tom
McAllister.
Yeah. Tom Marley's mother was a McAllister, right?
Tom Marley's wife was a McAllister.
Oh, okay.
I can't go back. My sister's got all that in the Bible, but I can't give it to her. But anyway, as it says in this thing that Grandma Rita Moore got for us, in Bozeman, there's a family named Quisenberry that have traced their family back through, and it brings in the Hardings, because one of them was associated with the Fergusons, married into the Ferguson family. And
That's where I was supposed to have a copy.
I know, we can't find it.
Wow.
Anyway,
I don't ever
actually-
remember seeing it.
My great several great uncles, several great down the uncle was a John Y. Boone,
Well, I know we were trading Daniel Boone.
No, it was John, I forgot. Anyway, he came over to, he traveled with Daniel Boone over the mountains to come out, west.
Now, you know most of the Shaw side of the
My
family.
mother's name and family was, my dad married. Anyway, my grandfather married my grandmother. They had just the two daughters, which was Lucille, who had Pat and Budge, and then with my dad, which had us three, Jackson, Virginia, and me.
There was
I
another
remember
brother
this,
that was,
Huh?
there was another brother that was in the
Well,
high school.
yeah.
There was another
Oh,
brother.
okay, there was another brother too that died
When
he
he
was
was
about
just-
21 years old. He was kind of a cripple. He'd been hurt when he was young. He wasn't a midget, but he'd never grown up to be a man either.
No.
So that's kind of hush-hush, so I don't know if
And that was what? One of Grandpa's brothers?
my grandma,
His name was Harvey, right?
Mhm.
Harvey Huck.
And my dad married a Shaw, who was my mother.
Shaw
was
or Shaw?
Shaw.
Shaw, S-H-U-L-L, and he was a blacksmith. And he traveled, he was a nomad. I mean, of course, the Shaws, my mother's family came from Toston. At one time, Toston was owned and run by the Shaw family.
That's the people we've seen up at
Toston.
There is a cemetery out from Toston. There's a cemetery up on the hill, on the mountain, on the hillside, and there's
Used to be
an
called the-
iron gate around. And there's nothing but Shaws buried up there.
Used to be
That was
Shaw
the-
Cemetery.
That was the first cemetery. There's nothing but Shaws buried up there. There's the stones are turned over now and everything. But I have aunts and uncles and great aunts and uncles everything buried up there. And then they settled out. When they left Toston, my mother's father and mother went out to Grants Pass, Oregon. And he opened a blacksmith shop there, and that's where he died. And my great-grandmother, she was about 60, had a series of strokes. And she was bedridden for, I imagine, 10, 15 years. Couldn't even talk all this time. She just, she could make noises. I think she had 11 strokes before she ever died.
And Aunt Rose
And my
took
mother
care of her.
had, my mother had a sister named Rose who was buried in Grants Pass, and she had a sister Martha, which was
They
buried,
called her Babe.
which is she's buried in San Luis Obispo, California.
She had one boy, right?
Yeah, and he was named Bill, and he was killed in an auto wreck when he was about 22, 23 years old.
And Aunt Rose had one boy.
And he's a big shot with. His name is Fred Sanford, and he was from California somewhere. He's a big shot with. I think he's a big shot with Boise Cascade last time.
And they adopted two.
Now, what relation was he again, this guy's big shot?
Oh, he would be my aunt's son.
See,
Who else was there? There was just Rose and Dave. Oh, then there was Gertie. Gertie, my other
Cordero.
sister, married a Cordero. They lived in Great Falls.
Now, I remember you talking about
Now, they're
Gertie.
buried both somewhere in California. My uncle.
no, it was
No,
in the
his-
Spanish and American
He was
War.
Spanish American War veteran. He's buried in the big cemetery in California somewhere.
Gertie, now, is that where Mary burned her feet, or is that just a
Yeah.
That was where
that's
Mary
where
burned her
Mary
feet.
burned her
She died in California. She had
Four
Cecil,
children.
who committed suicide. He was about 24 years old. There was Bess, and Ida Mae, and
What was the boy's name?
Bess, Ida Mae.
Nugget Jr. What
Nugget
was-
Jr. And I don't know. They're Ida Mae's Bess are in California somewhere. And Miss Bass, who is my Gertie's daughter, married a Bill Kennedy. And Bill Kennedy was he worked in his thesis going to Montana State College, and he went there. He was one of the founders of the atomic bomb, and he worked on it. He came up with the idea, or he was one of them that did, how to make it. That's all I'm talking about my family.
And what about Andrew? What did he do?
My grandfather?
Yeah.
farm.
Just a rancher, he was just a rancher, but
But he wasn't the,
he did some
Cavalry.
construction work. He was in the Spanish-American War.
right.
But I know he went to Hawaii, but what connection? I
Well,
don't.
he wasn't in
sure.
Hawaii, but he was in the South Sea.
Did Grandpa work for the railroad then?
Not unless he worked as a contractor. You know, helping build grades and so forth. He did a lot of contract work.
Your dad?
No, my grandfather.
Your grandpa.
My dad worked for, most of his life worked for Gallatin County as a
Road grader.
road grader, as a show operator, snowblower.
How come, then weren't the winters worse then?
Oh, yeah.
Well, 'cause we didn't have the paved roads for one thing then, and of course.
They didn't
I
have
can
the
remember
equipment.
driving down a road with snow 30 feet high on each side of the road.
Well, just like, I can't
They'd
believe
blow
now.
them out with these big machinery, and of course,
Pile it up, huh?
and then they get a lot of wind. Next day, that wind would come along and fill them. They just fill them right back in, and when they fill them back in, of course, they're packing just that much harder.
I can't believe the equipment they have now. And like when we were growing up, I can remember riding the combines and the tractors. They had no air conditioning or any of these
Oh,
building cabs or anything. You know, when the wind was blowing, you worked anyway, you know, and they don't have any of this.
Where was there a house on the ranch, or did Grandpa build a,
Grandfather,
or did Grandpa build, or
he built
your grandfather, or Grandpa?
my grandfather built the house. They homesteaded out of Spring Hill, and then they moved.
Where was Spring Hill at?
Oh, south of
It's north
Bozeman.
of Grandma's.
Past Grandma's Reeds and stuff, south of Bozeman. And they lived
North
up
of
there.
Bozeman.
South, that'd be
North.
Be north.
Yeah.
Be north, yeah.
And your parents, Harry and Mary, they homesteaded over at Winifred, Montana, over by Lewiston.
Now, I remember going to Winifred and seeing
Yeah.
the homestead over
Yeah.
there.
But that's where
They
they
took
homesteaded,
us
but
over
they
there.
went broke. I mean, they had a bunch of dry years, and they just went broke.
Then they moved,
Back to the,
Bozeman, and then he went to work for Gallatin County, and he worked for Gallatin County for 30 years, I suppose.
you did.
I mean, about the year he quit, he was over my grandmother died, and my grandfather was incompetent when we moved to the ranch. When he finally quit, he worked the ranch for a couple of years and tried to work for Gallatin County too, and he quit. And then the year after he quit, they put in a retirement plan. So he dismissed it, but he quit 1 year too soon. He got a pension all this little while, he didn't get it. He lost out on that.
Did he make you go to the ranch?
Oh yeah, he of course. Oh yeah, he made go. I don't think he made a lot of money, but my mother got. I don't know what my mother made now. My mother probably made at that time was probably made $300 taking care of my grandfather.
Huh?
well, he was,
Oh.
He's a Spanish American war veteran, and somebody had to take care of him,
Oh.
so the government paid her.
Well, what happened to all the land then? On the ranch? I mean, there was land across the river?
There was only 80 acres. All
What happened to it?
well, they gave Jack
Marion get it all?
some, and they gave some to
Well,
Virginia.
they sold it. We moved to Lewistown, and then when he had his heart attack, I was in Bozeman then, and then Gene and I moved to Lewistown. He married Marion,
And they
well, it was
sold
my,
it.
yeah, and then he wasn't able to run it, so then they sold it.
Jack sold his place, and Virginia sold her place.
I didn't remember Jack having a place. I remember Virginia having a place there on
No,
the side.
Jack was
Well,
right
Jack had the
below.
one around the other side.
Jack was still,
Over back on the other side.
yeah.
Well,
Okay, I remember a house being down there.
kind of gully, well, that's where my grandfolks gave my brother that land.
Oh.
They all did. My brother got land,
You didn't get any?
my
Virginia.
sister got land, but I didn't get it.
But that doesn't count, honey.
What do you mean, just down?
Well,
But,
Marion had always said that she'd see that Dad got some, but he never did.
Oh, I know that.
But,
I know there's a lot of bitterness with her, because none of the family ever got anything, because she got it all, and her family got it all. I know that.
mhm.
so, that's why I wanted Gene to go down to the borders and try to get it.
Anyway, speaking of coincidences,
I think that's,
What?
grandma
well,
out here?
yeah,
I
no,
don't think it's, huh? Well, not very fair to grandma, I don't think.
What
well,
coincidence about what?
She's
I-
right here?
She's in the
Well,
bathtub.
you can tell her then, but I don't think, I thought that was crude the other night, I really did.
Well,
Oh, tell me, quick.
anyway, Grandpa Border, this is what Sandra said. Grandpa Border died the 26th of September, 8 years ago. Ethel died the 6th of October. He died at 12:10 p.m. She died at 12:10 a.m. They were both in the same room. They put her in the same room he died in. And she died in the same room he did. Talk about coincidence. But
I don't see anything. I mean, that's gotta be so lucky to be a coincidence.
well, no, I mean it's just
Well,
something.
after all, your mother was married to him a hell of a lot more than Ethel, longer than Ethel was married to him, that's what I
Yeah.
think about.
That's
You know.
beyond.
Well, you know, my mother and her father died 1 year apart, same day, same time.
You got
Well, see,
that
this was 8 years
Yeah.
apart, but it's still kind of coincidence.
Yeah.
And you can take it as it is. But
Well, on the same month, same day, same hour. It was on Saturday. It was just,
so that was,
Well, how long was your mother married to your dad?
18 years,
And that's when your dad was married how long?
25.
They were?
Oh, they had to be, because ever since I'm 37.
Oh, they were married longer than your mother was then.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize, I didn't think that.
But that's beyond.
She
the-
told me about all that, which I'll get on tape later.
But,
Again.
it's all on to him.
Well, I mean about all of
But, Sandra,
Sandra and Ted are pretty nice. In other words, we might get a little something to Grandpa.
Sandra mentioned when she talked to me that her mother said I was to have the bottles and I'd get them. They cannot send them through the mail because there's liquor in them. They cannot, but I suggested maybe Skip take them to Bozeman and I could get them there.
Why
My
did
mother-
Skip go to Bozeman Park?
He lives there. He
Wow.
knows Grandma. He's been out to Grandma's.
Oh, I don't really know that.
Yeah.
Well, I think I
They
remember
used
about
to live
Skip.
at
You know, I
Grandma's.
remember about Skip is, the only thing I remember about Skip, two things. One is he drove a race car. He was driving a stock track. I remember watching him race
Well,
cars.
he and Sandra both drove. Sandra drove in the Potter Pup. She used to drive
That's right, she did
a
too.
stock car too.
Yeah, they both drove stock cars, and then he drove a logging truck too.
Yeah. But he works at Sears in Bozeman, lives in Belgrade.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And he's remarried, and when Bud was there before, Skip come out to Mother's. He knows Mother because I used to babysit Skip and Sandra. They lived in my mother's house. Mother and Dad built the apartment for Ethel and her first husband, Red. Ethel had
Yeah, you
been
told me
really
that.
sick.
They built the apartment?
Oh, yes, and Ethel helped Dad do the papering and painting and everything and fixing them up. Then they got a divorce because
No, I they told me. Huh.
Grandpa wanted to switch a room and Grandma wouldn't.
We want that on film.
Well, I want to get all this. Mom was telling me about how Grandpa was just nothing but
Well, it's not nice because somebody else might.
I know.
I'm sure he was a woman chaser, that's for
I was a good looking man. So was Grandpa. God, I was telling Mom the thing I can remember about Grandpa Harding. He used to smoke them cigarettes down to about a quarter of an inch. And his
He knows-
fingers were just brown. He would just,
He gets the last one. Dad's almost as bad.
he'd get the last
He's
cup
got
out
the
of that.
filter.
You'd see his ashtray there with just little dabs in there, about a quarter of an inch long. Where
I can still see you following Grandpa Harding around. Grandpa always walked with his hands behind him, you know, towards the end, you know. He'd say, foot shit, and there'd be Mike walking right behind him, foot shit, foot shit.
sure. Turn around, and say, you got me, dirty little...
Then one day Mike got the knife, and here's Grandpa hollering, that damn little kid's got that, foot shit, damn little kid's got that, foot shit. He just gets so excited he couldn't say anything but foot shit.
I remember a lot of things. I remember driving the tractor through the barn out there at the ranch. You remember that? I checked it through those double doors on the barn.
Didn't break the doors.
Yes, and Grandpa was so mad at him.
Oh yeah, I took the contact tractor right through the barn.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I remember the time the rooster got
Yeah, I
killed. Grandma.
remember the rooster got me too.
My grandmother couldn't wait to kill that rooster. She was mad to go if she ate that rooster.
Oh, Grandma spoiled me. I remember Grandma, quite a bit. I remember the raisins and her going in her pantry, and she used to fix me mashed potatoes with milk. I mean, regular potatoes, and mash it up and milk in it and butter.
You know, I forgot to have that. I used to like that. Milk on that potato.
Yeah, she used to do that for me. I've never eaten it since. I remember, living in the kitchen, that wood stove. The
Grandma.
rest of the house seems so dark to me. I can
Well, let's
remember, I
shut
can
off the
remember,
rest of the
It
house.
wasn't really dark.
I remember the,
Big
yes, it
bay
was.
window in the front, in the dining room.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
I
they used
remember-
to keep it shut off, except when
Yeah.
we had company.
Right,
Oh,
yeah,
they
you did.
not.
Yes, I did, Dad. I remember
That
the
side of the house was
The
all,
other side, yeah, but the kitchen, the dining room, and the bedroom wasn't dark.
No, that wasn't dark.
The other
Because I remember
side.
the china closet sitting in there. I remember the fireplace, and the wood stove. Grandma always had that wood stove going. Cook stove. I remember that wood cook stove. That was nice.
in the kitchen.
And then, as you went into the other shut-off part of the house, I remember a piano sitting there. I
Yeah.
can't remember much else except piano. That part was always shut off. And there was an upstairs.
Never used it. See?
Upstairs, I don't even remember.
Oh, I slept upstairs for years.
Michael, do
It was my room.
you remember both your grandparents on both sides?
Yeah.
Your mom's grandparents and your dad's grandparents?
I don't remember my great-grandparents except for on my mom's side. I remember Andrew just vaguely. But I used to have to go to sleep at Grandma's bed, and that clock would tick, tick, tick. Boy, that was the loudest clock.
It wasn't the same
But I
as
remember the
your
house was shut off. I remember that one side of that
Well, that
house.
house was built kind of funny. You know,
See, that used to be the
That
front,
house
now
is
it
built
is the front
yeah.
again, because that's where the
I
road
remember
is
the
now.
front was out there, so there wasn't even any steps out the
Kind of
front.
like our house is built, so it was just two houses put together in a way. I mean, it was, I don't know why.
That's
Big
kind of
stairways separating it.
I remember all the times we walked up that
Always
lane though in the winter.
Why you never built that that way? I'll never understand.
But see, that used to be the front of the house, so why I can see why it was built that way.
Why?
Because that was the
When you
entrance
come in
way.
the hallway, yeah, and there was the big stairs that went upstairs to the two bedrooms upstairs, and then you went into the parlor, which was actually the parlor.
It was a big
Double
house.
parlor, and on this other side was the kitchen and the dining room, and the.
We always lived in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I remember we always
Well,
lived
see,
in
that kitchen was built on afterwards,
No, it
because
was
then
not.
they,
It was
they
not.
changed the house
It
around.
was not,
No, your mother,
that, no way, that kitchen was part of the house.
I can remember all the winters we walked up that lane because it was snowing.
Mhm.
All the time, Grandpa would come down and try to help us get up.
you get so mad because Warren always managed to get, oh,
I never remember him getting mad.
oh.
Stuck in that damn.
I remember skiing down the hill when I was a little kid out there. I skied into a well one time down
Cesspool.
in the cesspool.
So it was the well, the cesspool. Yeah, there was some shit there too.
And the hay stack down there in the bottom in the back corner there, playing that and get all itchy.
We drove by there, I think that they filled that mostly in.
Before I even had a sled, I got an old Ford, Model T Ford, front end, fended. And that was my sled. You know, down the hill.
Just like these flying saucers.
That's something else. I remember between the barns there, Grandpa used to have that old truck he used to crank with the crank, and I've started it too.
That was an antique, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Marion's family got away with that too.
It is. What, Hires?
Yeah.
Vincent? Yeah, he got everything. He got a few antiques out of that.
More than a few.
Yeah. I called this guy here a couple times, and he never did call me back.
Call what guy?
Hardy.
Here?
Anderson.
No, he lives here, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I talked to his wife a couple times. He never did. What would you say?
I forgot he lived here.
She called me.
But, no,
Bud, yeah.
no, it wasn't.
Bud Anderson, it was true.
No, Bud lived in Bozeman.
No, it isn't Bud. It's John Anderson that lives here.
Somebody else lived here.
John Anderson that lives there. Well, I talked to his wife, and she was real nice. I said, well, have him call me, but I talked to her a couple times. He never did call. So
Robert.
no, it was John.
No, it's John.
Huh?
Bob.
Bob, yeah, it was Bob. It was Bob.
Bob.
That kind of a light again?
No, just quit smoking.
Well, let's turn it off and play bridge again.
Okay. Bond is ready. I can tell.
It's because nobody.
Well, I can remember all the hand cranks. Grandpa had
We
two
never
cows,
did
didn't he?
mention Virginia
Oh.
though. Virginia and her 2 kids, and then what Jack has. Jack had 2 boys.
And neither one of them ever got married. God, if that ain't a fiasco. Because they're both good-looking kids.
Yeah.
Of course, like you say, Erna mothered them, and
Too bad we spoiled.
And then there's Virginia has Terry and Terry.
Yes. Oh, I thought I was that. Okay. The first one I can do is have generally, we can use that generally, what they do with them, they cover the grave if they, it'll go in the place. But put that one with it. Yeah. Generally, generally we just put this one on when you go to the grave, leave it sit there and they put it on top of the grave. That's fine.
The eternal God is your dwelling place, and underneath are his everlasting arms. So cast your burden on the Lord, and he will sustain you, for he heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Let us pray together. Eternal Spirit, in whom we live and move and have our being, in whom our life is your joy and death only an incident in the eternal adventure to which you call us. Bring light out of our darkness, hope out of our sorrow, and comfort that arises out of an awareness of your holy presence. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Where the morning
Our Lord has foreseen days like today when we come together to remember a friend and loved one. And in his love and wisdom, he has inspired men of old to write of their own experience and of their hope. And I would share with you this afternoon a few passages which bring us to the point where we really begin to think about the meaning of this intersection between life and death. I would encourage you to take the folders that you received this afternoon as you came in and join with me and let us read in unison the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. On that great day, the king shall say unto them on his right hand, Come, blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then shall the righteous say unto him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you? And the king shall answer and say unto them, Inasmuch as you have done it unto the least of these my brothers, you have done it unto me. The night that our Lord was betrayed, he sought to comfort his friends in anticipation of his death. And he said this to them, "Let not your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And when I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, that where I am you may be also. I will not abandon you as orphans. I will come to you. Yet a little while, and the world will see me no more, but you will see me. Because I live, you will live also." We know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. What shall we say then to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? He that spared not his own Son, but delivered him up for us all, shall he not also freely give us all things? Who is he that condemns? It is Christ that died, rather that is risen again, who is even now at the right hand of God, making intercession for us. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress, or persecution or famine or nakedness, or peril or sword or death? No. In all these things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. And I am persuaded that nothing can separate us from the love of God in Jesus Christ. The Apostle John, apparently the apostle who lived to be of ripe old age, was given a vision near the end of his life of what life shall be when God finishes his work. And this is what he saw. "I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth are passed away, and the sea is no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down new out of heaven from God, made ready as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of the throne saying, Behold, the house of God is with men, and he shall dwell with them, and they shall be his peoples, and God himself shall be with them, and be their God. And he shall wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore."
God
Helen Moore was 83 years old at the time of her death. She had lived all of her life right here in the valley. Born in March of 1905 on her grandmother's homestead north of town, where she had lived a good part of her life. Helen was a well-educated woman, and she got all of her education right here. Bozeman Schools and Montana State University. In June of 1949, Helen married Joseph Moore, and he preceded her in death in 1978. She was an active and social person who was a member of many organizations and clubs and groups in our community. And beyond that, she was an important part of the community through, in various ways, in serving and being a responsible citizen. Helen is survived by her children, her daughter Jean and sons James and John, better known as Bud, by her brother, one brother, Arthur Reed, by 9 grandchildren and 12 great-grandchildren. And I think that it was one of those great-grandchildren that we heard singing a while ago, which gave her great joy to have heard that grandchild on the telephone a few days before her death. We gather on occasions, as we do today, to remember the person, to remember our faith and the faith of the person, and to express our love for one another through grief, through sadness, and through remembering and sharing with each other many times of joy, times of working and playing, times of learning with and from the person that we gather together to remember. When I think of Helen, I am reminded of the power and the love of God to bring life, real life, to what would otherwise just be existence. Helen was an interesting person because she was so alive. She was interested in people. She was interested in the out of doors and in working and doing her part. That's why she was so involved in the community. And in all of this, she cared for those around her. I believe that at least in part she was this way because she had experienced in her own life God's redemptive power. Helen did not live an easy life. She had more than her share of heartache, but she did not get bitter. And in fact, she used the victory over her own troubles to love and give hope to others. I have seen her go to someone in deep distress and comfort them from her experience in a way that those of us who have had few heartaches could never do. In her life and in her work, she exhibited the power and the gentleness of the wounded healer. Life was important to her, and she enjoyed it. And part of that enjoyment of life had something to do with her nature as well, in that she was a person that you could play a joke on. Many of you may not know this. I understand that it took her quite a while to figure out how it was that her hair got so oily every day when she used to work in the Loveless machine shop during World War II. Now it seems, and the perpetrator of this act shall remain anonymous, at least from me, that there was a hole in the ceiling from the second floor up above the machine shop. And that hole was right over her machine where she worked. And somebody up there would drop a few drops of oil through that hole several times a day. Now, it doesn't take a lot of that before you go home with kind of oily hair. I don't know this for sure, but I would imagine that when she finally found out what was going on, she thought that a pretty good joke had been played on her. She loved the people around her, all of them, and they loved her. In fact, she was loved so much by her children that one of them actually returned from on the second day of their honeymoon to see Mom graduate from college. Now, I don't know too many young married couples who would do that. I think that speaks of a lot of love and affection and appreciation and honor. She'd worked hard and long to become a nurse. She started nurse's training before she was married. And she interrupted that training when she was married and raised her children. And it wasn't until Jean was married that Helen went back to school and became a nurse. A lifelong ambition. Helen exhibited the love of God which sustained her through life. He gave her strength and hope and the power to persevere until she was victorious. He was her hope, and he is our hope now. The Lord blessed her in many ways. Even before her illness, she was aware, somehow, that this was going to be her last Christmas. She told some of those closest to her that this was the case. And she used that insight, and she made plans, and she went and spent Christmas with Jean and her family. First time they'd been together for Christmas in 17 years. The Lord gave them a very special gift. Even in her death, I believe that we see the loving hand of the Lord. She was not going to get better. She had nothing to look forward to but pain, and as a nurse, she knew that very well. All of her children had come. They had had a good visit together. And so the Lord came and took her to himself, that where he is, she may be also. Life and death, they are real. Blessings of life and sadness at death. I encourage you to experience the bittersweet as you feel your sadness and as you share fond memories with each other. For both the tears and the smiles do honor to her. As I was preparing this morning for this afternoon, there came to mind a passage from John Bunyan's book, Pilgrim's Progress, which I think says a great deal about Helen, about her life, and about what we're doing here today. And I would like to read just a short passage to you. Now, while they lay here and waited for the good hour, there was a noise in the town that there was a post come from the celestial city with a matter of great importance to one Christiana, the wife of Christian, the pilgrim. So inquiry was made for her. The house was found out where she was. So the post presented her with a letter. The contents were, "Hail, good woman, I bring thee tidings that the Master calleth for thee, and expects that thou shouldst stand in his presence in clothes of immortality within these 10 days." When he had read this letter to her, he gave her therewith a sure token that he was a true messenger, and was come to bid her make haste to be gone. The token was an arrow with a point sharpened with love, let easily into her heart, which by degrees wrought so effectually with her that at the time appointed she must be gone. When Christiana saw that her time was come, and that she was the first of this company that was to go over, She called for Mr. Greatheart, her guide, and told him how matters were. So he told her he was heartily glad of the news, and could have been glad had the post come for him. Then she bid him that he should give advice how all things should be prepared for her journey. So he told her, saying, "Thus and thus it must be, and we that survive will accompany you to the riverside." Then she called for her children, and gave them her blessing, and told them that she had read with comfort the mark that was set in their foreheads, and was glad to see them with her there, and that they had kept their garments so white. Then she called for old Mr. Honest, and said of him, "Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no guile." And then he said, "I wish you a fair day when you set out for Mount Zion, and shall be glad to see that you go over the river dry shod." But she answered, "Come wet, come dry, I long to be gone. For however the weather is in my journey, I shall have time enough when I am come there to sit down and rest and dry me." And then came in that good man ready to halt, to see her. So she said to him, "Thy travel hitherto has been with difficulty, but that will make thy rest the sweeter. Watch and be ready, for at an hour when we think not, the messenger may come." And after him Mr. Despondency and his daughter Much Afraid, to whom she said, "You ought with thankfulness forever to remember your deliverance from the hands of giant Despair. The effect of that mercy is that you are brought with safety thither. Be ye watchful, and cast away fear. Be sober, and hope to the end." Now the day drew on that Christiana must be gone. So the road was full of people to see her take her journey. But behold, all the banks beyond the river were full of horses and chariots which were come down from above to accompany her to the city gate. So she came forth and entered the river, with a beckon of farewell to those that followed her. The last words that she was heard to say were, "I come, Lord, to be with thee and bless thee." So her children and friends returned to their place, that those that waited for Christiana had carried her out of their sight. So she went and called and entered in at the gate with all the ceremonies and joy. Let us pray. Almighty and everlasting God, you are a very present help in time of trouble. When our heart is overwhelmed, our refuge is in you. You are the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the same yesterday, today, and forever, and of your love there is no end. Bless us with your presence. Grant that it may be more real to us than our sorrow, and that we may have such faith in you that it shall come and bring us light and peace through the promises of Jesus Christ. Amen. Family has asked that I announce to you that after the committal service, there will be a reception in the Masonic Lodge. I believe that's number 18. Yes, number 18 at the corner of Tracy and Main. That's upstairs over Miller's Jewelry. And they would like to greet you there.